Go.
All right, you guys, this is the part of the tour where we're gonna play a little game. It's called Who's a New Yorker? Now, this game is simple, the rules are simple. I'm gonna show you a picture, and you guys are gonna say, if you think that they're a New Yorker, you're going to say, oy vey! If you don't think they're a New Yorker, you're gonna say, forget about it! Okay, now a few more rules just to eliminate any confusion, because a lot of people do move to New York when they're in movies and plays and stuff. They have to either be a New Yorker right now if they're alive, or if they're dead, they have to be buried in New York. So, I'm going to give you a sample photo first, just in case there's any confusion, and then we'll go on from there. Alright, photo number 1. It's your totally awesome tour guide, Alicia.
Oy vey.
Yes, I'm totally a New Yorker. I live in the beautiful neighborhood of Bay Ridge. Awesome fact about Bay Ridge, if you guys decide to go down there, it was where Saturday Night Fever was filmed. You can actually go to the hardware store where John Travolta worked at, just right down the street from my apartment at 73rd and 5th. All right. Next one. Neil Patrick Harris, star of the hit TV show How I Met Your Mother, and Doogie Howser, MD. What do you guys think?
Oy vey.
Oy vey! Totally right. He lives on the Upper West Side. Next is Charles Dickens, author of such tales like A Christmas Carol.
Forget about it.
Totally not a New Yorker. He's from London. However, right where this building stands, there used to be an oyster house, and he did eat lunch at that oyster house once. So you can go in there and say, Charles Dickens ate here. 'Next would be the Kardashian sisters.
Forget about it.
Totally not New Yorkers. They did film a couple seasons of Kim and Khloe Take New York, and they own a boutique here, but they live in Los Angeles. O.J. Simpson, you guys, not a New Yorker.
He's in jail.
Yeah, he lives in jail now. Okay, next up is Bobby Flay.
Oy vey.
Hit TV. Oy vey, totally oy vey. You guys know who he is. He's on the Food Network. And they actually film over, their headquarters are at Chelsea Market, if you want to go over there and stock some of your Food Network favorites. Next would be Betty Grable. I know, this is a tough one.
Forget about it.
Totally forget about it. She's actually buried in Los Angeles. Next would be jazz musician Louis Armstrong.
Oy vey.
Oy vey is right. He is buried up at Woodlawn Cemetery in the Bronx. Which, if you guys get a chance to go to Woodlawn Cemetery or over to Greenwood Cemetery, okay, yeah, sorry about that. Birds kind of creep me out. I think they know it. I think they can read my mind. If you guys want to go up to Woodlawn or Greenwood, then it's totally macabre sounding, but they're both beautiful cemeteries. They're these amazing parks with these crazy mausoleums. Over 300,000 people are buried up at Woodlawn, and a lot of them are celebrities, so they do a lot of really cool tours there too. Next one would be actress Jennifer Garner.
Forget about it.
Totally forget about it. Though she did live in New York for a small stint in college when she was doing a play, she lives in Los Angeles. Next one would be author Herman Melville. That is oy vey. He was a New Yorker. He actually lived back down when we saw that really old building, the James Watson House and the Shrine to Elizabeth Ann Seton. He actually lived right next door to that. He is also buried up at Woodlawn Cemetery, and he used to work at this building that is right behind you guys. And that brings us to our next stop, Federal Hall. Now, Federal Hall used to be the U.S. Customs House, Herman Melville worked there after the whole writing thing didn't pan out. And his job was mostly going through passenger luggage to make sure that they weren't trying to smuggle in any goods under the radar. He also checked for false bottoms of suitcases and listened all day to stories about how that china that they brought over they got a really good deal for, or that bolt of silk isn't as expensive as it looks. Another notable thing about Federal Hall, so it looks a little bit different than it used to look. This was our city's second city hall. Now, this is what it used to look like back in the olden timey days. As you can see, it's gotten a little bit of a facelift. It doesn't really look like that anymore. But as you can also see, you might recognize this guy, statue of an American Idol. George Washington. This is actually where he was sworn into presidency. And you can see this is a kind of a crappy photo, I'm sorry, of him getting sworn in. There's a balcony right here, and where he's standing is where he would have been standing when he was sworn in, where that balcony would have been. As you guys can see, right behind me over here, we have the New York Stock Exchange. Interesting fact about the New York Stock Exchange, it's not technically on Wall Street. Its physical address is 18 Broad Street. It was built by George Post. You can see there is a frieze at the top, which is just a fancy name for kind of a sculpture that has a flat back to it. The middle statue in that sculpture represents integrity, and all the other statues around it represent different kind of workers. Like there's mining and agriculture and different kinds of industry. The one statue that you won't see up there is quality, and that is because that is not the original 90-ton statue. They took that down back in 1921 and replaced it with a statue that just looks heavy. However, in their defense, the original statue was damaging the integrity of the building, so they got rid of the statue, but we still have the New York Stock Exchange. Now, the New York Stock Exchange was not always in that building. When it started out, it was originally out here on the streets. They were called curbside traders. Now, it was also founded underneath a buttonwood tree and signed the Buttonwood Agreement. And here is a picture of what curbside trading would have looked like. It's pretty hectic. Kind of looks like the pictures that you would have seen of the inside of the New York Stock Exchange, except it's on the outside here. Then they moved inside in 1879. However, there still were some curbside traders that stayed outside. And then eventually, those curbside traders even moved over to a building that's behind Trinity Church, which is right over there. And they were called the American Stock Exchange. Then in the 1980s, the American Stock Exchange, the New York Stock Exchange combined, and now they're all kind of in that building right there. All right, so our next stop is going to be Trinity Church. And on the way, we're going to see a very early example of Art Deco architecture.